It's no longer outside. It's inside the atrium at the United Center, but the Jordan statue still stands strong as we get set for the 40th McDonald's Boys All-American game.
When you look at some of the greatest players to ever play the game, the one thing most had in common, they were McDonald's All-Americans. The heroes of the sport were at one time McDonald's All-Americans.
Pay attention to the stars of tomorrow tonight.
We are back at the United Center for the 7th consecutive season. We welcome you to the 2017 McDonald's All-American game. The premier high school all-star game. We have the top 20 players, 24 the top 30, and I've got my top 2 guys right here. All-American in 99, Jay Williams. All-American in 91, Corey Alexander. I'm Adam Amin. Quinn Kessnig is with us. I'm sure at some point we'll accomplish something in our lives that these two have done. So, give me a quick sense. Jay, let's start with you as this week closes out for these players. What the experience has been like for them. Maybe what was it like for you?
Well, like I said last night at the banquet for all these guys, when the lights are on, I like to see whose mentality rises up for the occasion, who likes to differentiate themselves. And I'm going to be honest with everybody at home. Yesterday, watching the practice, nobody really stood out. I didn't really feel like people really competed the way they deserve to. I want to see who's going to compete this evening.
And this is the beginning of All-American season, so when you think about that, there's really a trifecta, but it starts here at the McDonald's game. You have the Hoop Summit, you have the Jordan Brand Classic, but it's going to simply be about who's going to go out there, like you said, who's going to compete, who's going to try to separate themselves and be a real basketball player, not just a showman here tonight.
Now, something that sticks out for this game maybe that's different compared to years past, Corey, there are 6 undeclareds in this game, so there's a lot of recruiting going on the floor tonight.
Yeah, I went through that recruiting when I was a part of this game. You know, I came in with 3 schools I was down to. Only one of those schools had representatives here at the McDonald's game, and they had 4 of them. They happened to be part of a class that became known as the Fab Five, and they were trying to recruit me to become the point guard, but it was playing in this All-American season, playing with those guys, playing against those guys, I realized I need to be a scoring point guard, Jay. I wasn't just a point guard, so I had to move on to Virginia. You know a little bit about that, though.
And we love scoring point guards. And that's a new hybrid guard that we see in the league. And speaking of a guard that's going to be in the NBA very soon, Trayvon Duvall, #1 point guard in the class, he is exceptional. His ability to get to the rim, I call him a baby Russell Westbrook, okay? Yesterday, he didn't do media. I said, why are you doing media? He said, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want my game to do all the talking. Has great speed, great quickness, Corey, can get to the rim when he wants, can shoot the ball from deep, but also he wants to compete every time he crosses into those lines.
And he's an underestimated passer. People talk about his ability to score and be explosive, but he is a willing point guard. But he's, as you mentioned, he's that hybrid guard now that, of course, NBA franchises are looking at to be their franchise player.
We'll get a chance to talk with Trayvon Duvall. On the other side, he is one of 6 undeclared players in this game. It is the 40th McDonald's Boys All-American game. Plenty more from Chicago next.
The 2017 McDonald's All-American Game is brought to you by McDonald's. Stop by McDonald's for a delicious any-size McCafe coffee for just $1.
That was Colin Sexton, future Alabama Crimson Tide, winning the dunk contest the other night at the Powerade Jam Fest. All part of what has been a fantastic McDonald's All-American week, culminating with the boys' game. As we mentioned, 6 undeclared players. One of them is Trayvon Duvall. He is with Quinn Kessnig.
He's the #1 point guard in the nation. What did it mean to be named McDonald's All-American?
It's just a dream come true. You know, I've been dreaming about this my whole life, and for me to finally be here is just a blessing.
The lights come on now. There's a lot of people in this arena. What can fans expect to see from you?
Everybody could just expect me to, you know, have fun and just try to make for everybody.
I told you they're going to wait for you to get out there.
Yep.
Adam? Yeah, Quinn, he's part of the starting lineups tonight. We'll start with the East wearing the black jerseys. Another fantastic undeclared player. The #2 small forward is Kevin Knox, with 4 big-time schools going after him. Wendell Carter Jr. is the Morgan Wooten National Player of the Year. You're looking at the #1 player in the country, Michael Porter Jr. It's been a tumultuous last year for him. He's on his way to Missouri. Plenty to talk about tonight, and off we go for the 40th annual boys game. And here is Trayvon Duval on cue.
And we talked about competing in the game. We hope the guys took a cue from the young ladies earlier, an overtime game, and how special they were. But when you have personalities like a Trey Duval, he wants to compete. And I'm sure if he gets this thing started off the way that he does and goes at it competitively, I think everyone will follow suit.
Friendly roll goes down for Billy Preston on his way to Kansas. Out of Oak Hill Academy. This is the aforementioned Sexton with a beautiful switch in the air. Say hello to Avery Johnson down in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, one of the most athletic players we have in this game and in the slam dunk contest. His dexterity, the versatility that he had, some of the things he was able to do with the ball, and his ability to shoot the three like Trae Young here just missed. He's going to be a special player for Avery Johnson.
Absolutely, and Avery Johnson, of course, the former NBA player and coach, sees the potential in Colin Sexton and wants him to be able to get to that point, and Avery has the right tools to be able to get him there.
Avery Johnson is the #5 recruiting class in the country for an improving SEC. What a pass by Sexton, finding Wendell Carter Jr.
And here's what I'll say about Colin Sexton. Yesterday, during the practice, nobody really stood out offensively, but somebody who did stand out defensively was Sexton, because he was energetic, he was active, he was communicating, he was barking to people, and he was always down in the stance.
And Jay, that's part of the reason why he and Duval both are in the starting lineup. And when you watch these games, you're a part of it. When you see who actually gets that nod to go out and be a starter, that means something, because you got the best of the best here, and you got the best pass early in the game. Sexton dropping the dime between the legs, finding his homeboy Wendell Carter, the Atlanta connection, hooking up.
Yeah, Wendell Carter going to Duke University, and he's going to be fed that way next year with guys like Luke Kennard, Grayson Allen, the east side to stay around. Dominant post forward.
John Petty, by the way, is a phenomenal shooting guard. Was not part of the All-American games, but that is the #5 class in the country. What a job that guys like Avery Johnson and Bruce Pearl at Auburn and Ben Howland at Mississippi State, Billy Kennedy at A&M. Those guys have really elevated the level of the SEC, and obviously they had 3 in the Elite 8 this year.
I was about to say, I'm not sure if they elevated or if it was South Carolina, Florida, and Kentucky this year going into the NCAA tournament.
I agree with you, but I think their recruiting is only going to make those other teams that much better. I would imagine it would have to.
Absolutely. Shout out to Frank Martin, man, for what he's been able to do with the Gamecocks this year. My man, Sin City.
Darius Thornwell,
SEC Player of the Year.
Good block by Mohamed Bamba. This is a guy we're going to want to take a look at all night long. #2 center, #5 player, also undeclared. One of the most well-spoken, intelligent young men you'll get a chance to talk to, and one of the premier shot blockers in this class.
9'5" standing reach, 7'5" wingspan, and the guy runs the court like a deer. I mean, he's so active. He's blocking shots left and right. And also, I think one of the underrated things about Bo that nobody really talks about is that defensively, he's always up on screens. He's communicating to guards. I cannot tell you as a guard how beneficial it is having a guy behind you communicating to you which side the screen's coming from.
And you see him coming up with another defensive stop using that wingspan. But, Jay, that was one of the things I noticed in the scrimmage yesterday is how much talking was going on. And that's the thing, you know, for young players, it's often difficult to get them to communicate on the floor, but not with this group. You're talking about a number of special players, and they were extremely chatty on the court yesterday.
Out of Harlem, New York, Westtown High School in Pennsylvania in Westchester. Mohamed Bamba, 7'8" wingspan, the 9'5" reach, as Jay talked about. Very fluid and graceful, has a lot of physical gifts. Not the polish, but a lot of gifts. And there is Duval with his second bucket.
Who knows where Duval's going to go to school at? Will that be Duke? Will that be Kansas? Kansas losing Frank Mason III, also losing Josh Jackson. Chance for him to fit in that role there, but they also have Malik Newman, who transferred this year, sat out last year. Mississippi State, they could be loaded for Bill Self once again. Yeah, if he goes there, you could talk about Bill Self and company getting their 14th consecutive Big 12 regular season title. That's ridiculous.
Duval to Sexton to Carter to Bamba, and a foul.
Now, how many times do you watch an All-Star game and see 4 passes, overpassing, 4 passes on one possession coming down the floor, especially when you have the advantage? We didn't get to see the great pass by Duval, but you see 2 beautiful passes right there by Sexton. I want to hear from you.
I know in your All-Star game, I didn't see any passes. I didn't see any passes to you in your All-Star game.
I'm not even going All-Star game with you. I watched your whole career. I don't know if we saw 4.
I'm just here to pick up the pieces, guys. You guys go.
Yeah. We'll get you in this thing. Again, there's no turnovers in this broadcast.
Exactly, brother.
It's all shots.
There's Michael Porter Jr. getting his own miss. Let's talk a little bit about the #1 player in the country. Naismith Player of the Year. His head coach at Nathan Hale in Seattle is Brandon Roy. Remember, originally committed to Washington. Lorenzo Romar, his godfather, gets let go at Washington. His father, Michael Porter Sr., ends up getting an assistant job with the new Missouri head coach, Conzo Martin. Used to coach in Columbia as an assistant on the women's team. The women's head coach at Missouri is his aunt. A lot of deep connections to Como. So an easy transition to make for Michael Porter Jr.
Absolutely. And when you look at Michael Porter Jr., he's a small forward. There's no question about that. You know, at 6'9", people want him to be playing on the block, but he's a small forward, extremely skilled, and had the opportunity to coach against him this year. You mentioned Brandon Roy coaching him at Nathan Hale. We played them. Of course, I'm on the bench at Oak Hill, and he had 37 against us, Jay, and I'm thinking, wow, he had a great game. But he averaged 36 on the year. It was just an average game for
That was
him.
an average game.
It was just a regular game to go out and get 37.
And I'll tell you this, I love the fact that the player is taking the power back. So in an age where coaches can get up and leave the program, go to another program to make more money, I like the fact that Michael Porter Sr. and his son decided to say, hey, we're going to decide where we want to go to school at. And look, you have to pay Michael Porter Sr. as a coach. And his son, you have #1 recruit in the country. I'm glad they're able to leverage the situation.
And in all reality, he's going home. He's going back to home. It's where he grew up in Columbia, Missouri, and he's going back home to play in front of his family and his friends.
His mom was a great player. His dad played in college as well. We'll step aside, talking about Michael Porter Jr., the #1 player in the country. Showing up, showing out early, Colin Sexton, the future Crimson Tide. He had a big night on Monday. We'll see it on the way back. Yeah, throwdown's the apt word for some of these guys. Troy Brown Jr. on his way to Oregon with exceptional athleticism. The other night showing it off during the Powerade Jam Fest on Monday night. Jalen Hands, who at one point levitated over our man, Jay Williams.
You call it levitate? I call it posterize.
I was just happy I didn't get injured.
How did my guy volunteer for that?
And then he was the star of the show, besides Jay Will, obviously, Colin Sexton. Wrist on the rim. I mean, incredible stuff for Avery Johnson to be excited about. Some notable slam dunk champions. Vince Carter winning it in '95, considered to be one of the greatest dunkers of all time.
No, he's the greatest dunker of all time.
Definitively
it's not even a competition.
I remember the days of Daryl Dawkins and Dominique Wilkins, but like
I do too. They weren't doing reverse 360 windmills.
No, understand. Just throwing it out
neither
there.
one of you are old enough to remember any of that, so I'm not sure where this conversation comes from.
Who's the best dunker of all time?
How are you going to get past me with Chocolate Thunder sticking them under, and you're saying I don't appreciate it?
Best dunker of all time is Vince Carter.
Okay.
I'm going to ride with that. I'm just saying, and you two are too young to even be having that conversation, especially without even involving me in it.
Well, the other night I felt bad about throwing the word old by accident out there.
You didn't throw it out by accident. You meant to use that.
It was a slight slap in the face. I apologize.
Slight slap.
We were talking about Colin Sexton, though, showing off the athleticism. He's with our Quint Kesnick.
Colin, Jay Williams talking about your energy level. How would you best describe it tonight?
I just want to come out here and show the fans what they paid for. I want to give them a show so everybody's playing with energy.
How would you best describe Monday night and some of those dunks that you threw down?
I felt like the environment was crazy, so I had to give the fans what they wanted. So might as well showcase my dunks and everything else.
You had an interesting first shift, a steal and then a between-the-legs pass. What happened?
Oh, yeah, we're just trying to get out and run. If we run, nobody can stop us. I feel like in practices, all we was doing was running. And now I feel like we can run these guys out the gym.
Why are you not active on Twitter or Instagram? What's your mindset there?
Honestly, I feel like a lot of distractions and lies.
Yeah. Interesting. So you're focused?
Yeah, stay focused.
You've always gave your mom a lot of credit. Well, what's her reaction to this opportunity?
Actually, she was very excited because she almost started crying because most people don't even get the chance to do this. And then how hard I've been working the past like a year to show people like what I can really do. It's been show that my work ethic and everything has paid off.
She's got to be so proud. And to choose a path to go to Alabama to play for Avery Johnson. What's most notable for the fans at home about your path?
It's different. It's different. I feel like different is better. Different isn't weird. And being different, that's me.
Thank you, Colin. Continued success.
You know what I love about Colin Sexton? We got a chance to speak last night at the banquet, and one of the things I told the kids is that you guys are all your own brands. You're a business. You know, we always said, hey, your brand starts when you get into the NBA. No, you're going into business right now. And what you portray of yourself to the world, i.e. Snapchat, Insta story, whatever it may be, that's a representation of yourself to the world. And I like the fact that he's approaching this about his business. He's thinking about who he wants to be. And he doesn't need to be distracted with worrying about what everybody else has to say about him. He's worried about his inner core, his board of people, what they have to say, and that means everything.
And I had the opportunity to watch him all summer. And, you know, Colin Sexton at this time last year, he was on the scene, but he wasn't one of those highly talented guys.
He wasn't ranked this time last year.
So he basically, he came out and averaged close to 32 points a game in the Nike EYBL and led the league in scoring. But more importantly, he played on the U17 team for Don Showalter and played the point guard position and actually was the MVP of the tournament. And just like that, now you've got a top 10 Colin Sexton.
Foul called on number 0.
Jared Vanderbilt on his way to Kentucky and to readjust that shoe. And Jalen Hands will head to the free throw line.
Jared Vanderbilt will step back, stepping out the shoe. Since the shoe out of bounds, he's still in play.
Speaking of Jalen Hands, you lose one point guard in Lonzo Ball, you get another one in Jalen Hands, who is a dynamic scorer and a great playmaker.
Don't forget UCLA. I know a lot of people just assume Kentucky's the top class, and they are. UCLA is the #2 class. It's been Duke or Kentucky 1 and 2 in some order the last several years. UCLA has put together a fabulous class.
But as we talked about, there are 6 undecideds in this game. That ranking is not over. Some of these classes are going to go up and others going down simply because there's a lot of talent left to be signed.
On cue, Jalen Hands out of the same high school, Foothills Christian, that produced TJ Leaf, who had such a dynamic freshman year with UCLA playing alongside Ball. Battling on the interior, Mitchell Robinson. It will stay at this end of the floor with 16 on the shot clock. That's a look at Jaren Jackson Jr., who's on his way to Michigan State. Quade Green, another Kentucky Wildcat commit, the #3 point guard of the country. Able to knock that ball away. Recovered nicely for the jump shot for Brandon McCoy, another undeclared. Here is Robinson, the future Western Kentucky Hilltopper, the highest ranked player in the history of the Hilltopper program. Committed to Rick Stansbury when he was at A&M as an assistant, now playing for Stansbury at the collegiate level next year.
And he could possibly be the best athlete on the floor, and that's saying a lot. You know, at 6'11", but you see his ability to run the floor, and not only run the floor, but catch the passes and then jump. So that's already his second dunk in this game, and heavily recruited by his godfather. We talked about Stansbury, but Shammond Williams, of course, who we all know very well from North Carolina fame. But Shammond Williams is the one with the relationship with Mitchell Robinson and the guy that pretty much got him to Western Kentucky.
12:24 on the clock for the first. And a reminder that the NCAA Women's Final Four will start up on Friday. It's Friday, Sunday this year. Stanford, South Carolina in Game 1, and then the 10th consecutive Final Four for Gino Auriemma and UConn taking off the first-timers Mississippi State. Both games available on the ESPN app and Watch ESPN. This is Troy Brown Jr. Oregon's got the #14 class. They're still hoping to get Brandon McCoy, a West Coast guy, as Vanderbilt tips it back up and in.
So who gets that point? Is that Troy Brown?
It goes, I believe it has to go to Brown as the last man to touch. Beautiful connection there as Lonnie Walker, the fourth, the future Hurricane, puts it in.
And he's a high flyer as well. Lonnie Walker's one of those guys, Jay, you see him go jump, and you almost get a little scared because they get so high up in the air. You don't want him to get hit because that landing is going to be tough, but he can definitely get him off the floor.
Got that great pass by Quade Green. Quade Green will probably be the starting point guard next year for Kentucky. De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk, Bam Adebayo all going to the NBA draft.
Kentucky, typical of them, being able to reload with the #1 class in the country. 8+ in, 22-18. The East in black is on top. The West in white. Put down some good ball movement and some contortion acts in the air by Troy Brown Jr. Back to Chicago after this. Yeah, good. 22-18, the East on top as current Chicago Bull. Chicago native Dwayne Wade looks on. Rajon Rondo is in attendance tonight as well. The Bulls will host the Cavaliers tomorrow night here at the United Center, part of that Cavaliers roster.
Are they talking? Okay, never mind.
I'm not sure.
We won't go there.
Don't start
We
that.
won't go there.
Don't start that.
Jay's going to check Instagram while we see Richard Jefferson's fine photo here. The 1998 McDonald's All-American. Los Angeles born, but Phoenix bred and Arizona raised. Bear down for Richard Jefferson as he joins us here at the table. Really appreciate the time, RJ. Thanks for taking the time, brother. Really appreciate it.
See what happens when you run into people at the Soho House?
This is what
happens last night.
And they appreciate the plug.
Exactly.
Richard, give me a sense of your experience. I know it had to have been exciting to be with a lot of the players that you were with.
Well, I was an unknown kid. No one knew who I was. I didn't start playing AAU basketball until I was a sophomore, junior in high school. So I kind of stumbled on the scene. I had to work to get invited to the Nike camp. And then once I developed and started playing, I had a really good summer, which led to the McDonald's All-American game, which was, the highlight of my high school career.
When you got here, how did you try to differentiate yourself from other players?
Well, I just tried to soak it all up because, again, this was not like for a player like you who was highly touted for multiple years, like this was something that you knew was going to happen. Me, I just showed up and had no idea what it was going to be like. I didn't know any other McDonald's All-Americans like prior to that, so it was just a unique experience.
Now, RJ, I'm way back in 1991. You're 98, Jay's 99. I know my game was really competitive. It wasn't about the show. When you were playing, was it a competitive game?
It was very competitive, mainly for this reason. Michael Jordan's record it was still there. So Michael Jordan had, people might not know, he had the record at 30 points, and so everybody was trying to break it, and no one wanted to have anybody else score on them.
And Jay and I were talking about this before the game. When you got here, did you see the video where Michael Jordan was talking to the whole class and said, when you get to the NBA, I'll be waiting on you?
Oh, yes. That was that. But again, that was part of the, unexpected highlight of it. Again, meeting John Wooden, that was something that was so amazing and so special. And to this day, it's still some of the highlights of my basketball career.
Richard, it was interesting. I was just looking at the roster from that team. Jason Capel was there. Dane Fife was there. Al Harrington getting buckets. Rashard Lewis, Corey Maggette, Tayshaun Prince. So these are the types of athletes and eventual stars that you got a chance to play with.
Yeah, and it was great. Mike Miller was also on that roster. We had a lot of guys that were wing players. Rashard Lewis. Quinn Richardson. So we had a ton of wings. We were wing dominant. So it was like every day in the AAU tour, you were always going against a high-level wing player.
How are you still playing right now, man?
Honestly,
how is this possible?
I don't know. I have a really good job. I'm trying to do it as long as
That's
possible.
That's an understatement.
What I try and tell people, one is obviously taking care of your body, taking care of. When I was this age, I could literally stab myself and then watch my body heal itself. But I can't do that anymore. So it's like I sneeze right now and can throw out my back. So I just, it's just trying to take care of your body, trying to stay ahead of the game, and the league is really, really good at trying to learn how to keep people healthy and keep people strong.
This is the #1 player in the country, Michael Porter Jr. He'll go to the line. You've got a chance to see these guys in a small sample size. You got any thoughts that you can share with us based on just what you've seen so far?
They look a lot bigger than I remember when I was coming out. So I graduated high school when I was 17. So I was a late developer. Just my body didn't really develop until I was in college. And some of these guys, just the physicality that you see. I'm a fan of letting kids come straight out of high school and go to the NBA. I think if you look at what the college experience has changed now, guys are only going for short amount of times and one and done. When we were in school, I tell people all the time, the Final Four that I was in, we had 12 NBA players. When guys could go straight out of high school, and you still had 12 NBA players. Myself, Gilbert Arenas, Luke Walton, Jason Williams, Mike Dunleavy, Shane Battier, Carlos Boozer, Chris Duhon, and you had Jason Richardson. You had so many high-level players that you should let kids go, and then the ones that want to go to college will go there and be there for a long time.
And as a veteran, of course, in the league now, and I remember how it was for me when, my draft was Kevin Garnett. So he was the first one that started coming out. But when you see young guys now as a veteran and you see guys coming into the game at 19 years old, what is your thought process when you got to go out there and compete against one of those guys? Now, I'm not going to say your age, but you're a little bit up there now in basketball years.
Honestly, they're the reason why I still have a job. Because you need a veteran that you can count on. The player development is not the same. Normally, you have guys go to school for 2 or 3 years, and now they have a lot more experience. So my rookie year, I was able to play in the NBA Finals. a lot of that was because I went in the Final Four and I was understanding important shots and key defensive possessions. I understood that. I just wasn't in school for 6 months, played 28 games. I was like, now I'm ready for the NBA. I had that experience.
I actually think this crop of kids, we're going to see that replenishment of college basketball back again, because I don't see too many one-and-dones in this game. And we're talking about like Billy Preston going to Kansas, or maybe DeAndre Ayton. You know, he could be a one-and-done. Michael Porter. Maybe
I hope DeAndre's in school for 4 years.
Yeah, he would say that. It always comes back to Arizona basketball.
It has to. It has to, man. That's where I grew up there. That's where my loyalties lie. You know, we had a tough loss to a very good Xavier school.
Why?
You know, Sean Miller has done an amazing job. I have no criticisms of them. I think in the tournament, you look at what typically dominates the tournament. Shooting and speed really dominate the tournaments. You know, you see some big guys like Anthony Davis. You know, you see some guys have good tournament runs like big guys, but for the most part, those quick guards and that, you know, impressive shooting, those are the things that go well in the tournament.
RJ, I hate to break it to you, but I don't think the chances of seeing Ayton there more than 1 year are going to be very strong.
Oh, well, this is the thing. You got to enjoy it. I don't mind kids that want to go straight to the league or guys that want to leave early. But I think sometimes you get a little lost and you don't have guys that just go and enjoy the experience, because, you know, I think both of us stayed for our junior year. There was some consideration staying for my senior. Had we not, you know, been cheated in the national championship.
Why would you? It was such a great memory for me, though.
We were cheated to this day. You had more fouls. You had more fouls in your first NBA game than you did the entire tournament.
Well, I just decided to
foul. He had to play defense to foul, and that is not what he did.
I played no defense. Zero.
If you see the footage, he should have been sitting on the bench. and it's look. Say whatever you want.
I jumped on Jason Gardner's back and brought him down the court.
That's not a foul. That's asking for a piggyback, right?
And I played for Duke. It's not my fault the refs like us.
Yeah, are afraid. But at the end of the day, Mike Dunleavy had a great game. He had his best game of the tournament. So I don't blame the loss on you or that foul or any of that stuff. I still have yet to watch the game.
You're just a spiteful person.
I'm a very spiteful person.
I know who you are.
I'll tell you this. So, quick story. Mike Dunleavy, we're sitting there, and I was like, Mike, if it wasn't for you, I'd have a national championship. And he was like, yeah, but I get to sit here and watch you win your ring or get your ring, because he was on our team at the beginning of the year. And I told him, I was like, Mike, there is not a person on this planet I would rather have watching me get my championship ring than you. And you might be second. You might be second.
You should have worn it today and showed it all for him.
I got nothing but love for you. Yeah. Hey, I was going to ask you, RJ, real quick. How do you feel like, I feel like when we go back to school, when we had to make our commitment, I didn't care who else went to my school. I wanted to go to school for the sake of going to my school. How do you feel about these kids essentially becoming like free agents and waiting to see what everybody else is doing as far as leaving to go to the draft in order to formulate star-studded teams?
Well, I think that they want to win, and I think when you start to see LeBron James do that, when you start to see Kevin Durant do that, you see guys doing that in different levels, that's just something that you're going to see younger players emulate. They emulate us just like we emulated other players on multiple levels.
Richard Jefferson joining us, now an NBA champion, still with the Cavaliers. They're getting set to take on the Bulls tomorrow night here in Chicago. No panic, I would imagine, from you guys right now with your roster the way it is right now.
Yeah, we haven't played basketball at the level that we would like, but one thing that I've learned from Pop is, tough shot. One thing I learned from Pop is that it doesn't matter if you're the 2 seed or the 7 seed. Get there healthy. If you get there healthy, we can have the number 1 seed before and lost in the first round.
Really appreciate the time, RJ. Thanks so much for stepping over to us and get a chance to enjoy some of this with us. The former McDonald's All-American, looking at some of the current ones, including the number 1 player in the country, Michael Porter Jr. More from Chicago after this. Reminisce a little bit more. Why not? I love the grainy footage with Chris Webber.
Wait a minute.
Throwing down a big one.
Why does this year have to be grainy?
1999, Carlos Boozer. Eventual Duke Blue Devil, our man Jalen Rose.
Same year.
He told us the story about the suit that he wore during draft night during the broadcast last year. That was maybe the most entertaining part of it. Jay Will getting up. Come on.
Hey, you were just talking about not giving the ball up with somebody in front of you.
Hey, no. You know why? Because I already, 3 possessions in a row where I didn't get a touch. Tyronn Lue in the house.
The head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers getting a chance to take in the game tonight.
That was something else yesterday that happened during the practice. There are so many NBA GMs and scouts here breaking down every single movement of all these kids. And the kids looked very nervous yesterday during the scrimmage. And it gets hard to get lost into the continuity of how you play when you're worried about how do I look? Am I making enough shots? What am I able to do? As you see Bobby Portis and Rajon Rondo.
Former McDonald's All-American Bobby Portis as well, who's taken a much bigger role in the second half of the season for the Bulls.
You know, but when you talk about that, Jay, this is really the first time that you have the Nike Basketball Academy, you have Adidas Nations during the summer where NBA scouts can go in and watch guys. But at the same time, this is really their first exposure to having NBA scouts and GMs, et cetera, been with the opportunity to see them in live action, especially when they're going out truly competing against each other. And I'm sure that can be a bit overwhelming for these young people because in today's age with television, with so much social media, they recognize who scouts are. They recognize who GMs are now. Before, when we were coming out, I mean, you had no idea who these guys were, but now they know who they are and they know that they're watching. And, you know, that can make and break a lot of guys. That pressure can be a little bit overwhelming at times.
Like you said, we have the top 20 guys in our rankings, and 24 that we have in this game are all in the top 30. This is one of the impressive classes we've had in quite some time. Brandon McCoy, one of the undeclareds with that steal and the bullet pass. This is what the top 10 looks like for this particular recruiting class. And as I mentioned, we've got a handful of undeclareds in that mix. There is a difference, though, from last year to this year. And I agree with you guys, especially talking about the one-and-dones. I mean, the class that we saw a year ago, Monk, Fox, Ball, those are one-and-done guys and lottery picks, Bam Adebayo included. It doesn't seem like it's at that level, so this could be a very good thing for college basketball going forward.
I believe it could be. And when you look at Chad Ford's draft board right now, primarily the top 14 players are all freshmen. So these are all guys that were here playing in this game last year. But we talked about it. When you look out here right now, there may be a handful of one-and-dones, and some of those even could be mistakes, guys that would make that decision to go too early and not end up being in the league very long. So I think this is a class of players that could be in college 2, 3, even 4 years and make some college programs, you know, put some college programs back on the map.
Lonnie Walker on his way to Miami. Excellent shooting guard, number 3 shooting guard in the country. Burying a tray.
Him and Bruce Brown will be a lethal backcourt for Jim Larinaga.
Absolutely.
Lethal. And I was going to say this, as far as that top 10 ranking that we just had, Colin Sexton is not number 10. What I've seen over the last 3 days, he's not number 10. He's playing more like a top 5. I mean, that kid is literally competing each and every possession. Regardless of whether it's scrimmage, it's practice, a game, he is phenomenal to watch. He's one of the most exciting players I've seen in a while.
He's currently in the top 10, could certainly move up. You see Quint Kesnick there. He's got Mohamed Bamba, number 5 player in the country.
Mo, our guy's been talking about nerves. What's more likely to get you nervous, playing in front of a pro NBA scout, a college coach, or maybe an NBA player who's sitting courtside here tonight?
I definitely have to say an NBA coach, and people might think that we're kind of numb to it because we play on a Nike circuit or Adidas circuit or the Under Armour circuit where there's a bunch of different college coaches there, but these are the guys who are going to have they're not in the distant future. These are the guys who are going to kind of tweak your game and have little changes very soon, which is like in a couple of months. So I'd have to say college coaches.
You remain undeclared. You spoke to Harvard during your recruiting process. Are you thinking about going back in that direction? I'd love you to.
A lot of people would love me to. My sister's been really pushing for me to go to reconsider Harvard, but I think I'm comfortable with the 4 schools that I have.
And that's Duke, Kentucky, Michigan, and Texas.
Yep.
Your relationship with Coach, it has to be X. What would X be?
Well, it has to be X, excuse me?
Yeah, it has to be X.
It has to be tight. It has to be very tight-knit. We kind of have to be one. We got to be united. Dunk that. Hey! Let's go, Lonnie!
What's been most enjoyable about this experience this week?
Oh, man, playing with these guys. These guys have been off the court. These guys have tremendous personalities, and on the court, they're the best of the best, and I'm just happy to be here.
Thank you, Mo. We're happy to be able to talk to you.
Really one of the truly intelligent, engaged, well-spoken young men that we've got a chance to work with.
Oh, you can be smart and be a basketball player. I mean, look at that wingspan right there. He says 7'5" wingspan.
Quint, how did you feel about that wingspan, Quint?
I think he could reach around me twice and wrap.
Give you a hug twice over, man. A 9'5" wingspan, incredible stuff. That's the physical stuff. But Jay, you were talking about the intelligence and the mental attributes.
Yeah, his intellect, and when you have a big man at the foundation of your defense, at the baseline, communicating to the guards about screens and about different sets, about different things that are happening defensively, or about blocking shots. And here's something else about him that I love. He just doesn't block shots. He'll block shots and keep the ball in play. That's a skill. That's an awareness that not a lot of elite bigs have. And that versatility and that dexterity is something that's going to make him extremely successful in the future.
I love the fact that he says that he's not in a rush when it comes to making a college decision. He talked about Jared Allen at Texas, and he waited pretty much until June last year. And you're talking about a young man who's trying to gather all the information necessary to make the right decision. And I think oftentimes guys get in a rush based upon who's going where and trying to beat someone to a spot. And if you know, then by all means, you should make that decision. But if you don't know and you're still trying to gather information to make sure you make the proper decision, I think that's the route to go, and Mo Bamba's definitely doing that.
Tough take by Hands, and a great follow by the future Michigan State Spartan, Jaren Jackson Jr., number 3 power forward in the country.
In size and length, you think about if Nick Ward doesn't decide to leave for Tom Izzo at Michigan State, that him and Mr. Jackson together down there in the front court, they'll probably lose Miles Bridges.
Yep.
But still, Tom Izzo finds a way of getting it done year after year.
Wade Green with the bucket, featuring Kentucky Wildcat, and there is the take by Jalen Hands, which will take us to a timeout. Still a back-and-forth game, 44-40, the East on top. Some of the alumni: Kobe Bean Bryant, the 1996 class. The current New Orleans Pelican, Anthony Davis, who won a national championship. Kyrie will be on this floor tomorrow night. So will LeBron, part of the 2003 class. We're in the 2017 McDonald's All-American game. This is a solid finish from Lonnie Walker IV on his way to Miami. And some excitement from the bench from Mohamed Bamba, undeclared. Both of them leading the way for the East with 7 points apiece. Well, Thursday on ESPN, we'll have the NIT Championship at 8 o'clock Eastern time from MSG. Josh Pastner and Georgia Tech, Jamie Dixon and TCU, 2 guys that have done a really solid job in their first years at those respective programs. And then we'll follow it up with the Slam Dunk and 3-Point Championships from Phoenix, both on ESPN Thursday night. Also available on the ESPN app and Watch ESPN. Part of the number 2 recruiting class, Jalen Hands, going to UCLA, the number 4 point guard in the nation. Another guy who was not a household name in terms of NBA scouts, as Paul Biancardi, our director of national recruiting, told us, but got the MVP at the Adidas Nationals, and from there he has become a McDonald's All-American. Porter, the number 1 player in the country, in the double figures.
The versatility of Michael Porter is off the charts here. One of the things it's interesting to watch him play. You know, I've seen him destroy people in the AAU circuit, but watching him on the biggest stage, does he demand the ball? Is that something that you can learn? And I think for him, he has to continue to learn how to say and articulate this. I need the basketball, and be more a little bit demonstrative offensively.
And I believe he'll actually get that next year playing for Conzo Martin. And more importantly, you know, for Michael Porter Jr., he's not going to a Kentucky or a Duke or where he's going to be surrounded by other McDonald's All-Americans. He's going home to play at Mizzou, and he doesn't have a tremendous amount of talent around him, so he's going to be asked to do even more than what most of these guys are going to have to do in their freshman year in order for Missouri to be successful.
Sexton off the glass for Bamba.
From Colin Sexton.
Sexton, of course, on his way to the SEC as well, where he will have a decent amount of talent. Alabama stockpiled a nice recruiting class, and they have some pieces coming back.
And Colin Sexton showing off a bit of his passing skills there, and we know about his scoring ability, but I believe he's made a concerted effort to become more of a playmaker, as you see him with a beautiful find for Wendell Carter Jr.
7-point lead for the East. That's 3 dunks now for the future Duke Blue Devil in Carter. Pace is starting to pick up a little bit more as Knox tries to maneuver and gets bumped. Gary Trent picked up the foul, future Duke Blue Devil. Here are the top 10 recruiting classes. Kentucky, since John Calipari took over, And in his first recruiting cycle in 2010, they have been either the #1 or #2 class every year. But Alabama's up there, as is Florida out of the SEC. Washington had some decommitments that dropped them down to the #6 class.
Different year for Kentucky, though. It'll be interesting to see who is there. We assume that Fox, Monk, and Bam Adebayo will be in the draft. But outside of that, will Wayne Gabriel be back? You know, Wood is still going to be remaining at Kentucky.
Isaiah Briscoe, will he decide to leave?
What will happen with Briscoe? So you're bringing in 6, top commits, or top recruits, and they're not done. They're still in the mix for a guy like a Mo Bamba. They're still out recruiting. So who comes back and is a part of that program next year?
And it's a great recruiting class, but I don't think it has the stars like last year's recruiting class had. I don't think you have those household names like a De'Aaron Fox or Malik Monk, a top 5 caliber of a player, NBA draft pick player coming to Kentucky next year.
And when you look at the recruits, Nick Richards is a center. Mo Bamba is a center. So now what you're looking at is, do you get a Mo Bamba and you're having those two guys splitting minutes, or what do you have going on? But, of course, with John Calipari, what they lacked this year was a defensive presence. Now, Bam Adebayo did a great job at it, but he's not a center. Bam is a 4. You're talking about 2 guys that can protect the rim and allow his perimeter defenders to get up in passing lanes. And if they did get beat, you had someone behind you to protect that rim. I think that's what Kentucky missed this year.
There is DeAndre Ayton, the #1 center in the country, in front of Bamba, on his way to Arizona, #2 player overall in the nation. A different look than Larry Markkinen, but certainly a guy that can fill in that 5 spot. Sexton to the top of the rim, and there's Bamba again with the follow.
So DeAndre Ayton, he can play alongside Dusan Risic down low. Once again, another formidable front court player for Arizona. Arizona's going to be tall, long, but a lot of things still coming about. Is Kobe Simmons going to leave? Is Alonzo Trier going to leave? Is Riley Hawkins going to leave? So a lot of questions unanswered right now for Sean Miller.
Watch Trae Young shoot. They've given him some space, and the future Oklahoma Sooner, the #2 point guard, has scoring ability from the outside.
He's the one guy you don't want to give space out here, because he is dangerous from beyond that arc.
Here is Porter, the #1 player. The pull-up deep 3. And it will go back the other way with 38.1 to go. Got a chance to talk with Richard Jefferson. The Cavs now the #2 seed in the East, but in the West, it comes down to these 2. Still a 2.5 game separation between the Warriors and Spurs, but the Spurs have the tiebreak for the #1 seed. 9:30 tonight from San Antonio on ESPN. NBA Countdown will lead you into it. Sexton through the legs again, and Porter's there with the shot clock off. MJ Walker trying to dish it inside, and the run out. Sexton for Carter for the 15th dunk of the night here in the first half.
And Sexton up right there, almost coming up with the steal. Defensively, we talked about him competing, and because of his energy and his effort, you see the East getting out on the break.
Sexton throwing it up top, and it's slammed down by Knox to close out the first half in Chicago.
Are you not entertained? My man Sexton loves the lights.
D-Wade thought it was pretty impressive as well.
Avery Johnson has an absolute star coming this way, and is showcasing his passing ability right there, having a little fun, but still what he's not. I mean, he's still a big-time scorer and a big-time slasher with elite athleticism.
And we didn't see what he did early in that possession to be able to come up with the basketball, and really he was the reason why they forced that turnover.
Sexton had 6 assists. Bamba had 11. Porter had 12. The #1 player led the way in all scores with a dozen. The Morgan Wooten Player of the Year is Wendell Carter Jr. on his way to Duke. You'll get a chance to hear from him during the halftime break, all for the McDonald's All-American Games. Really the start of our high school basketball coverage in earnest this week with the All-American Games, and it continues with the Dick's Sporting Goods High School Nationals starting up tomorrow at noon Eastern on ESPNU. Some of the best teams and players in the country, including 5 McDonald's All-Americans going from here to New York to compete in the tournament, including Trayvon Duval, the #4 player in the country, Tuggs Bowen, P.J. Washington, Jaron Jackson, and Billy Preston as well. Now we get a chance to meet the Morgan Wooten National Player of the Year on the boys' side. Say hello to Wendell Carter.
My name is Wendell Carter Jr. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Next year I'll be attending Duke University, and I'm McDonald's Player of the Year. I kind of see myself as that that hustler, you know, the one who's, you know, diving on the floor for balls, you know, going after every rebound, you know, the first one back on defense, the first one out on the break. You know, I just see myself as that hard worker who's going to do whatever I do at 100%. Academics in my household has always been the main priority. You know, growing up, I was not allowed to play basketball unless I had all A's in all of my classes, so it doesn't fulfilling for me to be playing basketball and not be having the right grades. So I kind of set that standard for myself. One thing that people probably don't know about me is my passion for acting. Yeah, I've been in one play called You Can't Take It With You. It was like a comedy, and I was like this handyman of a family, and I mean, it was pretty funny. The way I came about it was my acting teacher came to one of my basketball practices, and he just asked me, you know, you mind filling in? You know, basketball was like heavy on my plate. You know, I didn't know if I had time for it, but you know, I went to the first practice and I automatically fell in love with it. This week, the McDonald's All-American game has been great, and it started Sunday at practice. The Ronald McDonald House visit was amazing. You know, I got to actually see the world from a different perspective. I just take that as a way to give back. A lot of people, you know, go into all-star games thinking that they want to score all the points or, you know, win the game. I mean, of course I want to win the game, but the number one priority is to have fun.
What a great attitude this young man has. Wendell Carter Jr., the Georgia Player of the Year, #3 player in our ESPN 100, on his way to play for Mike Krzyzewski and Duke. Plenty more coming up here during this halftime break, and including really what a lot of these kids talk about as the highlight of their week, their visit to the Ronald McDonald House. That's coming up next. Back here in Chicago, 56-50, the East on top as we hit the halftime break at the United Center. Of course, one of the...
I'm sorry, Adam, what was that? I can't hear you over the drum beats right in front of me.
There are Wendell Carter's parents. Very proud. I love the custom shirts that they had made with the Morgan Wooten Player of the Year in the Fry container in the upper left on those shirts. Really nice to meet their parents, or his parents. And it's a really fun first half that we got a chance to see. Wendell was heavily involved. Earlier today, we had the second overtime game in the history of the girls game. Rella Booth, who's on her way to Austin, Texas to play for the Longhorns, was the MVP. Chastity Patterson, a future Longhorn. Trey Young, a future Oklahoma Sooner in the three-point contest. And, of course, as we talked about, Colin Sexton, the slam dunk champions. All part of our McDonald's menu so far this week. And, of course, guys, maybe the most rewarding portion of this entire week for these players, these athletes, these students, is to go to the Ronald McDonald House charity and participate with these young men and women who just need a smile to brighten up their day.
Yeah, it puts life in perspective. And for everybody at home, when you think you're going through something serious, you take a second to go to the Ronald McDonald House and see some of the issues that these young kids, these babies are battling. And it makes you want to give it your all because they deserve it.
Really appreciate what these young men were able to do going to the Ronald McDonald House and participate with those kids. The girls did the same thing this week. It was all part of this McDonald's All-American Game week. We're at the halftime break. Second half is on the way. 56-50 the score from Chicago. Welcome back to Chicago in the 2017 McDonald's All-American Games. Back at the United Center, a 56-50 lead for the East. Halftime wrapping up here. It's not loud. I think it's the best way I could describe it. Great job by the pack here. Here's my pack. Adam Amin, Jay Williams, Corey Alexander, Quinn Kesnick is with us as well. And I mean, the first half was what we kind of expect from these guys. The intensity level starts to get a little higher. The skill level, the comfort starts to get higher. And we saw that as the first half went on.
Well, we saw some amazing passing as well. Colin Sexton doing a great job, not only scoring the basketball, but getting his teammates involved. And you saw so many guys getting involved. But again, we're looking for that competitive edge in the second half.
Yeah, Mohamed Bamba, had a couple of blocks. He had 11 points. He played well. But what do you love about Sexton? Not just the passing. It's the fact that he's able to transition quickly to the defensive end. I mean, he's got multiple steals in this ball game. He is a dog defensively. And there's a reason they call him Young Bull. If you don't recognize, now you know.
Lonnie Walker IV, who is part of Jim Larenega's recruiting class, had a really productive first half. He had 7 points, and he's shown some of the range as well. Could make an impressive backcourt tandem with Bruce Brown next year.
And when you look at Lonnie Walker, with the sky's the limit for him, or should I say the ceiling is the roof? I'm not sure which one. But the sky's the limit for Lonnie Walker. He has tremendous athleticism, and he's a guy that's going to flourish in the system with Jim Larenega in Miami.
Really fun to watch what Lonnie was able to do with some of the passes that we saw over the course of that first half, especially from Sexton. As we mentioned, Walker had a great first half. Let's go over to Quint Kesnick.
Lonnie, nice job in the first half. Our analysts over here enjoyed watching you play. What was most pleasing for you?
Just starting to get a groove from my game, feel the floor, and see where my teammates are. First shot was a little off, but my second shot started getting a little feel for the game. My nervousness went away, and, I was just happy to play here.
I'm nervous right now. I'm worried about my nose here. Let's take a couple steps away from the basket. What's the point of emphasis now going forward in the second half?
Just to show my all-around game, offensively and defensively. Show my stroke, my jump shot, and also my athleticism. I want to show everyone that I can play all three levels, 1, 2, or 3. You name it, I can do it.
Do you get the sense from everybody, your teammates, and even the other guys, that the nerves have subsided?
Absolutely. You can tell everyone's having a good time. Everyone's not tense anymore. Everyone's just happy at the fact that they're here, and everyone wants to show their talents.
Glad we moved.
Good stuff, Quint.
Lonnie Walker just winning a state championship on Saturday night before coming to the McDonald's game on Sunday, so didn't get much sleep at all after the championship game, but you can tell he's extremely excited about being here.
And quietly kept. You know who the leading scorer for the West team is? Michael Porter Jr. with 12 points. It's such a silent 12 points, though.
But he's one of those guys where it doesn't have to be flashy. He just knows how to get it done. I told you, averaged 36.2 points per game this year during his high school season. One of the better scorers in the country, but he's not a demonstrative personality. He's just a young guy that goes about his business, but the production is always there.
7 rebounds as well.
I think that's what you love about him. He's quiet, but he just does the work. He does the work. He'll get you an offensive rebound. He'll get you a steal here or there. He's always in the right place at the right time.
Paul Biancardi, our director of national recruiting, said the NBA scouts think that he's really head and shoulders above the rest. Do you guys see that so far from Porter?
I've seen a lot of him, so I can't say that he's head and shoulders above the rest because they're very good players here, but I do believe that he is the best player in this class.
Okay.
And we will only see him in college basketball for 1 year. And for a number of reasons, his game translates more to the NBA right now than does college basketball, because as a 6'9" small forward, in college you're going to have to play against zones. You're going to have to play against a 6'2" 3-man trying to get up underneath you. But when he goes to the NBA, he'll play against a guy like a Paul George or LeBron James. Not to say that's going to be easy, but his game translates better to playing at that level.
I think his basketball IQ is what sets him apart. He understands how to play, and he understands how to make the game easy, and he doesn't try to force the action. And I think that's actually a very undervalued attribute that he has, because not a lot of players can think the game through. He plays fast, but he thinks slow.
He's going to play for Conzo Martin. Defending the perimeter is an area of growth, but he's working on his weak side defense, as most of these guys are. That's going to be a major jump, whether you go to college for just 1 year or a couple and then get to the NBA. That's going to be one of the most important things for all of these players.
The reality behind it is all of these guys have been so good, so young, that defense has become secondary because it's not something that's really been demanded from them by their coaches. And, of course, when you're this good and you're the star on your team, you have to be on the court. And so defense is not as much of a priority. I mean, we got a classic example of that sitting right beside me, National Player of the Year, and never played defense.
Hey, I played defense when I got angry.
So I can actually feel some defensiveness from Jay right now, as a matter of fact. Now, But listen, I talk to NBA coaches. You guys talk to NBA coaches. It's matchups at the NBA level. And if you can't defend your position against the guy that's around your size, around your speed level, if he's got you, you're not going to find minutes. There are guys, they're really good guys that only play against the bottom half of the league because they can't defend.
I don't think that'll be a problem for Porter. I think that he's a guy that can adjust to that. And as Jay mentioned, his basketball IQ is high enough to where he can learn whatever he needs to learn to be successful at whatever level it is.
Well, I also say this. I think, when you're involved in the AAU world, and we've seen LaMelo score, 70 points, 92 points,
hey, don't blame that on AAU. That's high school.
No, that's high school. Well, it's high school and that's AAU because me, I would have fouled out before somebody scores 40 points on me. All right? I'm going to hit somebody hard. Like, I'm going to be angry about it. But, Frank Martin said something, head coach of South Carolina going into the Final Four, that I thought was so intriguing. He said, what makes me sick to my stomach? When I hear grown people say that kids have changed. Kids haven't changed. Kids don't know anything about anything. We've changed as adults. We demand less of kids. We expect less of kids. We make their lives easier instead of preparing them for what life is truly about. We're the ones that have changed. And I like that he demands greatness from kids, just not being offensively great, scoring 60 points, but taking on the challenge of trying to lock somebody down. And that's what I look for when I come to this game. Is Colin Sexton trying to lock somebody down? Are you not going to let somebody just come and score an easy bucket on you? Or do you demand greatness on both ends of the court?
And, Jays, you mentioned that with Frank Martin, and what people rarely look at, Sindarius Thornwell, who has probably been the player of the NCAA tournament this year, carrying his team to the Final Four, not solely on his back, but yet he has done a tremendous job. But he was suspended earlier this year, and that's the thing you're talking about with Frank Martin. Holding these young men accountable, and he was holding Sindarius Thornwell, his captain, accountable for not operating the way he should in that position this year for South Carolina.
They were undefeated for a long time with Thornwell in the lineup, and Frank Martin said, you violated a rule, you're going to be out, and that obviously helped turn them around when he got back to it. But he was the best defensive player in the certainly one of the best backcourt defenders in the SEC as well. He did it at both ends of the floor.
And not a McDonald's All-American.
That's right.
But he did go to Oak Hill, so it's kind of like the same thing.
Look at you with your plug.
Well, let's we're tied at 58. Let's give the folks watching at home a stat that I think would shock them a little bit, or perhaps it wouldn't. But every year since this game has been intact, every national champion except for two has had a McDonald's All-American on its roster. The only two that didn't, Maryland in 2002, UConn in 2014. That's it. So these are the guys that are going to be impactful players on championship-level teams. UNC, a roster full of All-Americans. The other teams, Oregon doesn't have one, or Oregon didn't have one, South Carolina didn't have one, Gonzaga has two. For those of you watching at home, these are the impactful guys you're going to see in college basketball coming up. Well, let's take it back into the time machine and look at some former McDonald's All-Americans. Isaiah Thomas, Michael Jordan, James Worthy, and then Ralph Sampson as well. Thomas, Worthy, and Sampson played in the same game. They all played in the 79 game, which was the second game played all the time. Jordan played in the 1981 game, all part of the McDonald's All-American games here from Chicago.
See, I didn't know that. So, of course, when I'm saying the 1995 McDonald's game had the best players, I might have to revisit.
Are you retracting your statement now?
No, I'm still going 95.
Still going 95?
95 was
I'm still going 95.
You said 95. Sharif Abdul-Rahim, Chauncey Billups, Vince Carter, Kevin Garnett. I mean, some of the major names in that 95 game.
Keep going.
Wait a minute.
Well, we go. I mean, listen. Why don't I show it to you? How about this?
Okay.
Just some of the notable names that played in that 1995 game.
Okay. And of course, Sharif was here with us this week. My man Chauncey Billups. Vince, we already talked about him, the best dunker of all time. KG, who started this whole leaving out of high school thing.
How about Stephon Marbury and Kevin and KG on the same team in Minnesota?
Absolutely. And then Paul Pierce. So you're looking at 4, possibly 5 Hall of Famers. Not just all these guys were NBA All-Stars, but you're talking at 4, possibly 5 all Hall of Famers on that list.
And then, I mean, Anton Jamison, B.J. Mackey, Ron Mercer, Sam Oakey. These are guys that filled out that roster. That's a pretty good back end of that roster to look at, too. Nice knock away by Brandon McCoy. Launching pass by Brown, looking for Bowen. Saved, but 2, Quade Green, the future Kentucky Wildcat. Numbers. nearly thrown down by Lonnie Walker.
But I like the play by Troy Brown. You're in the All-Star game. You know you've got a guy like Lonnie Walker who's a high flyer, but Troy Brown not scared to get dunked on, still going out there trying to make the defensive play.
And how about the pass right there by Quade Green? And I have a shocking statement for Kentucky fans. Kentucky fans, I actually think you're going to get a chance to know your players for a couple of years.
#1 class that has typically seen the one-and-dones. What do you think, Ben?
I don't see any of these guys being a one-and-done player. And look, they're all very, very good, but I don't know if I see any of them taking over a game to the point where they're going to put up the numbers like a Malik Monk or like a De'Aaron Fox or like a Bam Adebayo. P.J. Washington has the size frame to do so, but once again, I mean, he's kind of up in the air. I think these guys could be around Kentucky for 2 to 3 years.
But, Jay, that's good news for Kentucky.
Yeah, that's good news, yeah.
And the reality behind that, and the reason why it is because they win with, I won't even say upperclassmen, but people who have been in the system for years. You look back when they made it to the Final Four, and then in 2012 when they actually won a national championship, you know about Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, but it was Darius Mitchell, it's Terrence Jones, it's
Darius Miller, right?
Darius Miller, Terrence Jones, Deron Lamb. It's those guys that really led them to that national championship. You look back, Gilchrist and Davis were 4th and 5th as far as shot attempts on that team, but they were a very good defensive team because that system was in place. So I think that's actually good news for the Kentucky fans. I'm not sure if that's something that John Calipari has done intentionally to keep guys around a little longer, but we've seen that with Roy Williams and North Carolina, who are now playing in their the second of back-to-back Final Fours.
Well, I mean, we think about the experience level. You still need some veterans to help you along. I think Derek Willis played a very important role for Kentucky this year. Michael Mulder, when they needed him to at both ends of the floor, played an important role. And those are, I mean, Willis is probably a pro, whether it's in Europe or maybe a shot to play in the NBA. I think those are still important guys to be a part of those teams. And one of those guys that's on his way to Kentucky is Jared Vanderbilt. He's with our Quint Kesting.
Jared, our guys have been talking about the one-and-done phenomenon and how that's impacted Kentucky. Do you view yourself as a one-and-done type player?
I mean, that's the goal. I mean, I feel like I got the tools to do it. But, I mean, I'll see how the year goes and how it progresses. And then if the opportunity presents itself, you know, I'll definitely look into it.
So that's a best-case scenario.
Yeah.
At what level would you have to play to depart for the NBA?
Oh, you definitely got to play at a high level. You know, show my versatility, show what I can do best, compete at a high level, and just make the guys around me better.
Who have you enjoyed from this McDonald's crew? Guys going to Kentucky, who have you enjoyed teaming up with most?
I've enjoyed all of them. You know, Quade, he's a great leader. Nick is a great finisher. And PJ can do it all just like myself. So it's been great, you know, getting a chance to get a preview with the team I'm going to be playing with next year. So it's a great group of guys.
Thank you, Jared. Adam?
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Quinn. Appreciate it. Kevin Knox at the rim, able to deny DeAndre Ayton, and Bamba throwing it down at the other end.
And you see a beautiful feed again from Trey Duval. We talked about his passing ability. Underrated passer because of his explosiveness and his ability to score. People forget about that. This is not a young man that has to learn how to play the point guard position. Yeah. He knows what he's doing running a team and playing the point, which makes him so special, and the reason why he is the #1 point guard in the country, because he can do all the things necessary.
That was a great feed as well from P.J. Washington, future Kentucky Wildcat, to Kevin Knox,
who is still being recruited by Kentucky as well. So Kevin Knox not necessarily off the list for Kentucky either.
Yeah, North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, and FSU.
Yep. Remember, he's got a connection with FSU. His dad was a football player there for Bobby Bowden. His mom played volleyball there as well. That's going to be a heavy pursuit. And Florida State's got to reload a little bit. Xavier Rattan-Mays going to the NBA draft. Jonathan Isaac.
Dwayne Bacon.
Those three guys are planning on leaving.
And Kevin Knox, one thing that people don't realize, and we talk about potential, Kevin Knox doesn't turn 18 years old until August. He's the youngest guy out here. And when you look at that potential with him, and going at about 6'8", 6'9" right now and still growing, he's a guy just like Michael Porter Jr., where he's a better perimeter player right now than he is as far as what he does on the post.
It's always interesting for guys when they choose to go to these schools, like if that's Michael Porter Jr. and going to Missouri, knowing that everything is going to be on your shoulders to do everything. We've had that multiple times now with Ben Simmons at LSU, with Markelle Fultz, who's probably going to be the #1 pick in the draft, taken up, coming up in June over at Washington. Now we're going to have the same thing with a guy like Porter.
But one thing that Porter does have to his advantage that those guys didn't have, he's got a little brother by the name of Jonte Porter.
That's right.
Who may be reclassing up to the 2017 class. to go play 1 year with his brother in college.
This is one of those undeclared men we were talking about. Kevin Knox, the block, leading to the fast break. Sheer athleticism for Knox. And
look at that. That's a beautiful pass right there.
That was excellent by Duval.
And that's Bamba, too. His hands were up. Like, he provided a target. And I can't tell, you know, enough for kids at home when you play and your bigs are running the court. Provide your guards with a target on where to pass the ball. Those simple things make it easier or more accessible for guards to deliver the pass. I'm 15 points. Wow, 4 of those points, 4 dunks.
Wow. Bamba making it very impressive so far, helping set a screen and roll long enough. Sexton was delivering that pass, and you saw Sexton, hey, you got to go here. You got to move this way. That's some of that leadership you were talking about. Ayton with the easy dunk from the future Arizona Wildcat.
DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, you guys were talking about Michael Porter Jr. The whole family is a Missouri family, basically. He's got 2 sisters that are playing right now for Missouri women's basketball. For Robin Pinchton, who won the SEC Coach of the Year. They've got a really strong team, does Missouri. So he's got 2 sisters there. Jonte's got a decision to make. I'll be curious what happens with Jonte, because he did say it might be good to not play with Michael for a year, because his quote was, "I've always been the Robin to the Batman." But it could be very beneficial in a lot of ways, too, if you get to see both of them together playing.
Well, I've spent a lot of time with Jonte, and Jonte can handle his own. I mean, he's ranked a top 25 player in the 2018 class, and he probably should be higher than that. But he's a special player as well. So, again, for him to be able to go there, and, of course, there's a need. That's the biggest thing, is if there's a need at Missouri for a guy like him in his production. So I think it would be a great move if they're able to make that happen. But, you know, again, of course, the Porter family will have a decision to make on that one.
Trae Young missed it. Ayton unable to cleanly follow. And Sexton slithering past Billy Preston.
He's a big-time guard, man.
He is.
I mean, he has the upper body frame where he can take contact, and he also understands how to change speeds.
Well, and see, on that play alone, Jay, because he's passed the ball so well early in the game, Billy Preston's looking to see, is he going to drop it off? What's he going to do? And before you know it, he's in the air finishing the basketball.
Nice shot by the future Jayhawk, Billy Preston.
When you talk about talent,
versatility.
Oh,
right?
my goodness.
Wow.
I mean, he is oozing with talent. No question about it. Hasn't always been the most consistent guy, but he has all the tools to be a special player.
PJ
Washington with the finish. 2-point game with 12 minutes to play.
We haven't talked much about P.J. Washington, but, you know, both of his parents played at Middle Tennessee State. I joke with his dad, Paul, who's his coach at Findlay Prep, all the time. P.J. didn't get his skill from his dad. Mom was 20-10 at Middle Tennessee State. Wow. So when you look at P.J., the way he produces, it's all Mom. It's all Cheryl right there. Sorry, Paul, but Mom is the one that put in the work with that one.
Young leaving it for Preston. And a foul on Knox trying to make his way back. Like in the run-outs tonight.
Yeah, Billy Preston right here showing you that versatility. Nice little sweet mid-range jumper splash.
And on the other end of the floor, P.J. Washington showing off his wingspan and finishing as the East holds the 4-point lead.
Welcome back to the 2017 McDonald's All-American Game. The 40th annual game, played in Chicago every year since 2011. And right now a 4-point advantage for the West and White over the East with 11.5 to play.
All right, let's see some guys lock up. Let's pick up the intensity.
Don't you go on out there and try defensive slide?
I'd rather sit right here and talk about it.
Jay actually pulled a hamstring while cheering just then, a moment ago.
I want to see you go out there and slap the floor and sit down in front of somebody.
First off, I would never slap the floor.
You did.
I didn't.
Don't act like you never did it.
Those were just to get me into the game.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, I understand now. I understand.
Michael Porter Jr., the #1 player, has got 16 points, make it 17 and 8 rebounds. The #2 player in the country is with Quint Kesnick. That's DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah, Phoenix native, #2 in the ESPN 100. How does this game compare to maybe the way you imagined it would be?
I mean, it's all I imagined it to be. You know, everybody's very physical. Everybody's very talented. And, you know, it's a high competitive level out here.
When you describe your strengths to people who've never seen you play, what's the one thing you want to emphasize?
My competitiveness and offensive rebounds. That's about it.
Why was Arizona the right fit for you?
You know, my mom, most of all, she made it home, and she felt comfortable there, and she just wanted to be a part of the Wildcat history. make Wildcat history yesterday.
What type of recruiting class? How would you best describe that recruiting class?
Oh, it's pretty. I like it. It's pretty deep. You got Ira Lee, Brandon Randolph, and I think Alex Barcelo coming in. You know, it's a pretty good size, pretty talented dudes coming in. Great guys as well.
You do your work pulling those other guys in?
Say that again?
Did you do your work pulling those other guys in?
Not really. I probably talked to Randolph here and there, but I'm really trying to get Trevon Duvall and Ryan Bone, who's undecided.
You got good taste in point guards.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Try to get the best of the best.
Adam.
Thanks very much, Quinn. Yeah, good stuff from DeAndre, who's going to be playing out west. And what is, obviously, the Pac-12 has seen a resurgence, and the recruiting classes reflect that as well.
We hear them talking about the recruiting. We talked about that in the open.
That's
right. One of the things here that guys do when you know that, and there's 6 undecided players, they are going to be recruited, and you know when those guys are up in the air, they're coming in with the mindset of, I'm going to get them in my program.
Now, Jay, you had an interesting point about this. There's a hard foul on Hands, another future Pac-12 player.
I like it. Nothing easy.
But you've talked about this, Jay, over the course of the week with that level of recruitment going on. Guys want to wait. I want to see who's going to go to the draft first now. I want to, because the rules are the way they are, players can declare for the draft and then they can come back, so that might affect my status. That's why we do see some guys waiting a little bit until really the Final Four, the week after the Final Four, to actually declare.
Yeah, it's like free agency. You know, why wouldn't you wait to see what the movement is going to be and, you know, kind of make your decision having all the facts in front of you, right? You think about what's going to happen over at Duke with Grayson Allen, Luke Kennard, Frank Jackson. That could, you know, kind of hinder the decision of a guy like Trevon Duvall. Does he want to go there? Are there enough ball guards there with Frank Jackson if he's still going to be there? Or Luke Kennard, Arizona, Alonzo Trier, Riley Hawkins, Kobe Simmons. What are they deciding to do? Laurie Marketing, he decided to leave. But this is going to be something that we're constantly going to see in the game. Guys are not in a rush anymore to make a decision. They're going to wait to see who decides to leave and then what's going to be the best fit for me.
Right now, the West with a 7-point lead. Michael Porter Jr. is on the bench, but leading the way. He's with Quinn Kesnick.
Yeah, I expect to see Michael in the game the last 4 or 5 minutes. Nice alley-oop.
That was pretty.
And a miss. Michael, what have you done well tonight? When I look at your stat line, it's active, active, active.
You know, I'm just trying to play hard. In games like these, sometimes it's hard to get a rhythm, but I'm doing all right. I'm crashing the glass. I got to make my free throws, though.
So when you're used to playing all 40 minutes and you're playing in spurts, it's difficult?
Yeah. You get kind of cold sitting here on the bench for a little bit, so when you got to go in the first couple of minutes, you're trying to get warm. But, you know, we're playing good, and hopefully we get the win.
What part of your game are you most proud of?
I would just say I'm getting better, being an all-around player instead of just a one-dimensional player. I really try to play harder on the defensive end than I used to, so I got a lot of stuff to get better at, but I'm trying.
Our analysts were talking about your younger brother, John Tay, and perhaps him reclassifying. What can you tell us in terms of his future?
I don't know. It's up to him. Our parents have never been people to try to pressure us into a situation, so it's up to him. I don't know the timetable, though.
But it's strictly what he thinks is best for his future?
Yeah, I mean, he'll talk about it with my mom and dad, but, I mean, if he wants to stay in high school, if he wants to class up, that's up to him.
You looking forward to playing with him down the road, or maybe not?
Yes, sir. I love playing with my brother. You know, we feed off of each other. We play real well together, and, you know, I hope he classes up.
Thank you, Michael. Adam?
His mom, Lisa, played at Iowa, scored over 1,300 points for C. Vivian Stringer, and his dad played at the University of New Orleans, and 8 kids all exposed to basketball.
So we talked about the recruiting going on. Did Michael not just recruit his brother?
I think he was trying that. I can't wait to see what it's like to play with him. Absolutely.
Okay.
He's got 17 points to lead all scorers. Bamba's got 15 for the East right now in a 2-point game. Well, don't forget, we've got Warriors Spurs battling for the top of the West. When that is done tonight, Sports Center at night with SVP, NBA, NFL, college hoops, NHL. My man Stanford Steve's got the bad beats and anything else. Part of the Sports Day wrap-up with SVP coming up on ESPN after Warriors and Spurs from San Antonio. Chris Wilkes on the foul. Wilkes on his way to UCLA. They've got a really strong class. As we mentioned, the number 2, Wilkes and Hands are in this game, but they've got Cody Riley coming, really good power forward. Jalen Hill, really good center. LiAngelo Ball, the younger brother of Lonzo, is still a ranked small forward.
And let me tell you, Cody Riley, is a man-child. He is a grown man the way he conducts his business on the block. More than just on the block. He can play on the perimeter a bit, but he is a young man that you'd love to watch play. Every possession matters to Cody Riley.
Ooh. Richards in a collision up top with Jalen Hands, another future UCLA Bruin.
Again, Nick Richards having no part of that. You're not going to put me on the poster here in the McDonald's game. It won't be a highlight forever. Make sure that Jalen Hands has no parts of that.
But by the way, Jalen Hands has that type of athleticism.
Oh,
he will try you now.
Yeah, absolutely.
He will try you. This young man is fearless. He might have that baby face smile, but he's an assassin.
I had Jalen Hands at the USA Basketball minicamp a few years back. And, of course, he was a younger player, I believe, a sophomore at the time, and Alonzo Trier dunked on him. I mean, but Jalen, and I'm coaching Jalen. He turns the basketball over, and Alonzo Trier bangs it on his head. Now, granted, Trier a bit older, but I take Jalen out of the game because he threw a cross-court pass. So I'm like, hey, you can't do that. He's like, Coach, you can't take me out. You got to let me get him back. So I said, hey, I just got banged. I got to get him back. I sent him right back in the game. Go get him. And that was a tough cover trying to get his Trier back. But right now, I believe that he might be on that level to be able to try to get him back. And we'll see what happens with Trier staying in Arizona. He might have a chance next year.
Here comes Richards to Wilkes.
Chris Wilkes.
Kentucky to UCLA there, 89-85 with the West on top with 8:37 to play. I think we've touched on just about every player. We have not mentioned tonight Chuck O'Bannon Jr. Haven't seen him on the floor a ton, but he's going to the Pac-12 as well on his way to USC. That's the nephew of Ed O'Bannon and the son of Charles O'Bannon. So spurning the UCLA lineage to go to USC.
How great of a job did Andy Enfield have to do to get him to not go to UCLA and come over to the arch rival?
That is impressive stuff. Part of the number 17 class, by the way, too. It's a really strong recruiting class for USC. As you look at Ed O'Bannon, who was a 1990 McDonald's All-American. Again, the uncle of Chuck O'Bannon.
And Ed O'Bannon, you see the years towards ACL while in college. And so it was actually in college for 5 years. But he and Chuck combined for that 1995 championship team. That was a special group.
And Ed was the Final Four MOP that year.
Yes, people at home, it is cold up in here like that where you have to wear Powerade towels to wrap yourself to keep yourself warm.
They got the ice
There's
underneath it.
Exactly.
This is the Blackhawks arena, too. Robinson may have gotten a piece of that Bowen offering. McCoy couldn't connect. And here comes Quade Green. 3-on-1. Looking for Wilkes, and well defended by Hands. Future teammates battling right there. And Hands blows by Green.
Jalen Hands.
6-point lead for the West. 12 points for Jalen Hands. Green maneuvering inside. Robinson working hard, and he'll have a chance at a three-point play on the other side. The future Western Kentucky Hilltopper takes us to the under-8 timeout in Chicago.
The 2017 McDonald's All-American Game is brought to you by McDonald's. Stop by McDonald's for a delicious any-size McCafe coffee for just $1.
Some more of the alumni of the McDonald's All-American Game, Amari Stoudemire and Alonzo Mourning. And maybe two guys that came out of the best class we've seen over the last decade or so. Kevin Love and Derrick Rose in that 07 class. That was one of the most talented groups that we've had a chance to see during this McDonald's All-American Game. It's been a tight game throughout, 93-89. Every player except for MJ Walker, one of the undeclareds, has scored in this game. Got the top 20 players in the nation and 24 of the top 30. Mitchell Robinson, the highest ranked player to sign with Western Kentucky, playing for Rick Stansbury, misses the free throw. Here comes Trey Young. There is Walker. Kicking it back out for a three. And it's knocked down by Gary Trent Jr. on his way to Duke. The #1 shooting guard in the country.
And Jay, you talked about what happens at Duke, and Does Grayson Allen go pro?
Green to Robinson.
How many wings does Duke have?
Well,
That's where it gets interesting.
That's really the thing, because when you mention the one-and-done guys, Gary Trent Jr. most likely would be a one-and-done. But does his situation at Duke, going and playing alongside Grayson Allen and Luke Kennard and Frank Jackson and possibly Trayvon Duval if he makes that choice to go to Duke, does he have the platform to be able to put himself in position to be a one-and-done guy?
Well, they're going to win a lot of games if that actually happens. It's a good problem to have.
Absolutely.
For Duke and Coach K. The issue is for Gary Trent. If he thinks he's going to get up a lot of those big-time numbers with those shooters on the floor, it'll be interesting. But Duke will be able to space you out with all those threats.
Trent missed the three, but a good cut to the rim. Out of bounds with 6.5 to play. This is the 2017 class for Mike Krzyzewski, currently ranked number 4. They've been number 1 or number 2 the last few years. Alex O'Connell really strong at the guard position as well, along with Carter and Trent.
And they're heavily involved with Kevin Knox as well.
That's right.
So when Kevin Knox, I know that's one of the places he's strongly considering whether he'll become a Duke Blue Devil. And they've lost a lot up front. Of course, Mill Jefferson now gone. Harry Giles entering his name into the draft. We haven't seen what will happen with Marquise Bolden to this point. But yet, they'll still be loaded. No question about that. But they do need some help up front.
Speaking of Duke, how much did you love this tweet the other day?
Well, I was laughing about it. Just Leitner finding a way to insert himself into the conversation. And when he's talking about Luke, he's talking about Luke May from North Carolina making that game-winning shot against Kentucky, which, by the way, that first half was extremely poorly officiated. And it's interesting, not knocking anybody. I don't think we need to get to the point where there are death threats into John Higgins about that at all. I think that's way extreme, but I will say there were a lot of questionable calls in that first half against North Carolina.
But, I mean, there are games that are going to have questionable calls. I
think the whole tournament's been poorly officiated, to be honest with you.
It's a small minority of fans, but they made Kentucky fans, who are as a whole very fun and very energetic and very passionate, look very bad. Adam Amin, Jay Williams, Corey Alexander here. Let's go over to Quint Kesning.
Yeah, 40th year of this McDonald's brand all-star game here in Chicago since 2011, and this city has done a wonderful job of hosting this event. McDonald's has given away over 2,500 tickets randomly to 20 different schools in the area, and that's really enabled young kids to come here, to see it, to dream it, to believe it, and to get more dedicated to get there someday themselves. A lot goes on behind the scenes at this event to ensure that this place is packed. And once again, the energy here in Chicago is unlike anywhere else that we've been at.
And Jay, you and I obviously love this city very much. You played here. You started your professional career here. I live here. Corey, you've been through this arena. You've had games against Michael Jordan in this building. This is an arena that means a lot to basketball. It's been around since 1994, and a lot of championship banners have been hung in this building, and it means a lot to this sport, this event as well, and it's been fun to see it in Chicago the last several years.
Also, what they've been able to do with the Boys and Girls Club and Ronald McDonald House,
Absolutely.
bringing the kids onto the court, allow them to have opportunity to kind of see what their dreams could be, to play in the United Center, to meet a guy like Dwayne Wade. This whole experience has been great.
And that's what it's about. It's simply, it's of course, these 24 young men have been able to experience something that is great, but what you're giving right now by them being on this court playing is so much inspiration to so many kids out there watching that grow up wanting to be a McDonald's All-American. I know I was one of those kids watching this game.
Well, Thursday on ESPN, we'll have the NIT championship game from another excellent arena, Madison Square Garden. First-year head coaches at those programs, Josh Pastner and Jamie Dixon. Georgia Tech and TCU for the NIT championship, and then the slam dunk and three-point championships before the Final Four from Phoenix. That's all on Thursday on ESPN. Around and out for MJ Walker. Trae Young ends up with the ricochet, and it's stolen away by P.J. Washington.
Showtime. Oh.
Duval got held up by Trent, so instead of passing it, he's able to muscle inside to cut the lead to 2. Nobody picked up Trae Young.
And they dodged the bullet on that one.
Trae Young has not made one, but he is probably the best three-point shooter we have here.
Sexton trying to get fancy with it. Here comes the West, up by 2.
How do you not pass that? How do you not pass that?
She was running with Gary Trent, but O'Bannon at least gets the 2 out of it to make it a 4-point game.
He hadn't gotten any shots up, Jay.
No, you're right. See, I get it.
Got to get him something at some point. Like I said, it had been a while since we talked about him. Yeah,
get another one.
Hey, you wanted your shots too, man. We were talking about this as Young knocks down a long three. Lon Kruger smiling down in Norman, Oklahoma.
Let me tell you what, I got set up in the McDonald's game. Let's just start with that.
Come on, man.
Listen, the game, now, of course, myself and Travis Best are 1 and 2 nationally as point guards coming out.
Sure.
The game is in Springfield, Massachusetts, in Travis Best's hometown.
That's true. That's true.
And when we walk into the locker room, the coach says, Travis, and talking also to Eric Brunson, you guys can play for me anytime. Donald Williams and I knew we were in trouble in that game.
No mention of your name.
I don't think the coach knew who I was.
3:58 to go, and the West with a 106-97 lead. Look at that is way deep from Trae Young, the future Oklahoma Sooner, the three-point contest winner the other night, too. As soon as we're done with the McDonald's All-American game, NBA Countdown charged by Mountain Dew will start up and will take you to a battle for the top spot in the West. 2.5 game lead for the Warriors, but the Spurs have won the first 2 meetings. They have the tiebreak over Golden State, so a slim margin of error right now for Steph Curry and the Warriors, who are red hot. That'll be at 9:30 Eastern time on ESPN. Gary DeCesar has done a fantastic job. He's coached 3 McDonald's All-Americans at his stops, including in St. Raymond's in the Bronx. Currently the head coach of St. Rita here in Illinois. His West team has the advantage and trying to extend it with Chuck O'Bannon Jr. at the free throw line. He's on his way to USC. And then on the other side for the East, Jim Martin from the Providence School down in Florida, the head coach of Grayson Allen and Patrick Young, 2 McDonald's All-Americans in their day, a captain in the United States Army, just the second coach from the state of Florida to be the head coach of the McDonald's All-American game. Excellent job by those 2, getting these young men in line, in rhythm, in concert together this week.
And Jay, here we are, under 4 minutes. No more media timeouts. Now we'll see, will these guys go out and compete and see who can win this game?
That's Knox cutting the lead down to 8.
I love watching Kevin Knox be aggressive. When he's aggressive, he's a different player. He seems like a player you can float sometimes and still have a lot of points. But when he attacks, when he has that mentality, he's a different player.
Here is Porter, who has led the way with 17 points and 8 rebounds tonight. McCoy got caught up with Bamba. Jump ball will give it to the East. So here are the top 5 players in the ESPN 100, all playing here. Duval and Bamba are undeclared. Who stuck out most to you, perhaps? Corey?
I'm going to start with Michael Porter Jr. I think if the West wins this game, he should be the MVP. And a lot of it has to do with the fact, of course, he's the leading scorer, but more importantly, the way that he's getting him. Offensive rebounding, crashing the glass, also has 8 boards. And it hasn't been just about the show. He's actually had some substance to his game.
I'm going to wait to see how the last 3 minutes of this game plan out.
Oh, yeah. Come on,
I'm going to wait. Yeah, exactly.
Strong wait-and-see stance by Jay right there.
I'm watching Kevin Knox take on the personal pride of trying to guard Michael Porter Jr. And I like that. He's actually staying down in the stance, and he wants that challenge.
He just put in 2 to cut it to 6. Hands from the baseline extends the West lead.
I'm not even looking at you
Corey's
right now.
So angry right now.
CA's upset. What a pass to Knox from Sexton. That was pretty.
And we talked about Colin Sexton a lot in the first half. Now, of course, if the East is able to make a comeback and win this game, he's got to be one of the guys in consideration for the MVP as well.
Yep. Knox might have committed a foul. No, it's an offensive foul.
Once again, Kevin Knox making an effort to try to get over the ball screen. And the intensity is picking up right now. You're going to see him run the transition, and Colin Sexton with a great pass over the top to Knox.
Hey, Jay, who'd you pick in your Final 4? The 4 that are in there now?
Or do you want to wait? Or do you want to wait and see until the games are over and then you can declare?
So I'll tell you who my national champion is on Tuesday.
Okay, thanks.
I'm tired of picking. Everybody at home talking all that trash. All y'all brackets gone too. Nah.
Hey, believe me.
Hey, well, all of us, brother.
I got all that. I'm not sure if people really expect for us to be able to pick these.
I mean, if I could pick the games, I would be on my boat in the south of France.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, you wouldn't be sitting next to a schmuck like me right now, right? I'd be calling you saying, hey, can I come down to the boat?
Don't get it twisted. He does have the boat. He just said he would be there instead of on air.
6-point game, 2 to play. It's been a fun one in the 40th annual McDonald's All-American game. Here is Porter, a pop for 3. Bamba flies in for the rebound. He's had a strong night with 15 and 5.
Cannot tell you how active Bamba is. He is everywhere on the court.
He's had 4 blocks as well. And there is a Duval dunk to cut the lead to 4 with 1:40 to go.
Get up in him, Colin. Let's go.
It'll be Carter against Preston here. Duke against Kansas. Good defense by Carter. Bowen, one of the undeclareds. Trying to shake Carter. Tough left-handed shot.
Defense.
And how about this? The East is going to get it back. Down by 4 with a chance to cut into this lead.
And how about Wendell Carter, a power forward, actually guarding a guard on the perimeter, showing that lateral quickness.
He's capable of doing that, no question about it. Wendell Carter's one of those young men that really loves to compete. You saw a number of matchups between he and DeAndre Ayton this year when they were actually the number 1 and 2 players in the country, and each one of them had one of their credit. But Wendell Carter definitely loves to go out and compete.
Here is the number 1 point guard, Duval. Arizona, Baylor, Duke, Kansas, Seton Hall in the mix. Ricochets to Carter. Off to Bamba, and it's a 2-point game with a minute to go. And a timeout used here by Jim Martin.
Like the way the intensity's picked up here in these last few minutes of the game. And now you can see that both these teams are going out there and they want to be able to walk away from here with the win. And a lot of that has to do with, this is the start of All-Star season. So you have the McDonald's game, and then, of course, you've got the Hoop Summit coming up as well as the Jordan Brand Classic. It's a lot of bragging rights going on right now.
Right back in this thing. We just got to get a couple stops. That's how we got back in it. We've always scored.
We tough on them. We tough on them.
Hey, it's a minute to go. You got to be thinking stops. We're going to come down and score. We've been scoring all night. You got to get a stop now. Got to get us up. Rebound. Come get an offensive glass. Hey, we got 1 timeout left now. Be smart. Let's go.
Now they're able to get a stop. Something that Trayvon Duval needs to consider is when he brings the ball down the court, they're going under every single ball screen. Michael Porter isn't stepping out. He's going to be wide open for that 3 if he decides to take that shot.
You sound like a true vet when it comes to that. Going under the screen,
Well,
you were letting them fly.
You just got to recognize that. I think it's something that you're still watching this game progress in that manner, recognizing what the defense does.
So the West has it with a 2-point advantage. Hands to Preston. Steps past Carter for a big 2. Rebounded by Hands.
Smart play by Jalen Hands, not forcing up a shot. Now he can kill some time with his shot clock and make sure they get a quality look.
I think Brandon McCoy wanted a feed in the post, but I think Hands made the right decision to burn some of this clock.
I love this matchup right here.
Here we go. Hands against Sexton.
Got to help on that ball screen.
Knox picked him up on the switch.
Defense. Great defense.
Preston in traffic, trying to fling it underneath. And with 20.9 to go, East down by 2 will have a chance to tie it or maybe win it.
Well, now we saw an overtime game with the young ladies earlier. Do we have an overtime game here today? I mean, it took them 36 minutes to really start competing.
All I know is we better not have another West Virginia situation. We better not dribble the ball at the top of the key for 40 seconds.
You better get a shot.
And then take a 3.
It is Sexton. Driving on Hands. Sexton to the rim. It was blocked by McCoy.
Ooh, no goaltending.
No goaltend called. It will stay at this end of the floor, though.
But it looks like that ball hit the glass.
The refs need to go back to the monitor.
Yeah, they can go check that out.
We need to stop this game for at least 20 minutes like they usually do.
We got to look. Does that hit the glass first?
It did not.
No, it doesn't. Wow. Good block.
Wow.
Good block.
Brandon McCoy, the undeclared number 3 center. 5.7 to go.
Uh-oh, here's
into Duval. Duval lost it. 1.7 left. And it will be East basketball. Last touch by the West. Last chance to tie it or win it. Duval, the trigger man. Throwing it up for Bamba. Thrown up by Carter. That one will not count from Bamba. And the West survives with a 109-107 win.
I like that we have some defense down the stretch. It actually mattered.
Hey, CA, you called it. It might have taken 36 or so, but we had a fun last 4.
We did have a fun last 4, and those guys actually got after it for those last 4 minutes. You can see, you look at Kevin Knox. He wanted to win this game. Mo Bamba getting involved in the end, but give Michael Porter credit for coming up with a huge block on Bamba's tip.
Both Bamba and Porter each had a game-high 17 points tonight. The number 1 player and one of the top undeclared players embracing momentarily. Love to see the competitive fire with these guys, but a lot of recruiting being done over the course of these last several days. Michael Porter Jr. and Mohamed Bamba led the way for their respective teams. Porter is with Quint Kesnick.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to center court for the John.
Michael, congratulations. You're our MVP. What emotions were you dealing with tonight when you walked out onto the floor?
You know, it's just a dream come true for me, man. I've been working for this my whole life. It was such an exciting game, and, man, I feel blessed to be here.
How do you best describe the intensity of those last 2 or 3 minutes?
Man, I know a lot of all-star games, people just come out here and play around, but, you know, we were actually going hard. So, man, this win wasn't easy, and the last couple minutes were rough.
Congratulations, Michael. Adam.
Really appreciate it, Quinn. Great stuff from Michael Porter Jr. 17 to lead the way. Bomba at 17, and a lot of fun that we all had with Quinn Kesnick. CA, a pleasure. Jay Will,
my man.
As always, we had a blast. Hope you did too. These guys are the future stars of college basketball. You're going to be watching them this time next year, playing in the NCAA tournament and into the Final Four.
We're throwing into some old stars now, right?
Now we got some real all stars, absolutely tonight. Warriors and Spurs, top of the West. The showdown's coming up from San Antonio. Adam Amin saying so long. NBA countdown. Michelle Beadle and company. Beads.